I let somebody call me Jim for literally 6 months, and I thought, you know what? It's been so long. Why bother now?
Rhyme or free, it doesn't matter to me. It's my bad poetry. Good day, and welcome to My Bad Poetry, a podcast where we take a deep dive into our poems from youth, yesteryear, or even yesterday, always asking the question, why in the world did I write this? I'm Aaron.
And I'm Dave.
And today, we are now halfway through capturing all the voices of the now mythic Thursday night reading writing group, which we did not know existed until we have talked to the first three, Nolcha, Alex, and Robert. But Ken Tomaro, poet laureate of the Cleveland sewer system, is the author of several poetry books, including his most recent Potholes and Pierogies. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Is there anything in the intro that we might have missed, or you want to?
No, I'm real simple. I don't, my bio is not half a page of esoterical bullshit. It's pretty straightforward.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is 99% of my poetry just comes from, dealing or living with depression. So I don't always see the rainbows and the happy sides, but that doesn't mean there isn't some beauty in the writing somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Potholes and Pierogies was a very moving work.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, even for the dumps of Cleveland, it saw some beauty there. So.
Yeah, I like to think so. It's I feel like the writing just keeps getting better and better. If I were to go back to I do not generally go back and reread a lot of my poetry. I go by the Charles Bukowski way of doing things, where he says, I just put it out there. I don't make love to it. I don't tweak it. I just let it go. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I got 3 books before that, and I just sometimes forget that they're still out there too.
Nice. Well, we're bringing you here to do just that, to dig through the old stuff. So to bring us into the realm of poetry, Dave has a slapdash thing that he's just written and is going to throw out there in the world. Dave, what do you have for us?
Well, this one, I usually pore over my work for minutes at a time. But this one literally came together in about 15 seconds, and it's about worth 15 seconds worth of work. So this is called What I Need. To close my eyes, to snore, to dream, to rest would be wise. I think you see a theme.
That's great to me, because I'm a big believer in being able to tell some kind of a story, even if it's only, 10 lines or less. It doesn't have to be novel length or, some great, it's little pieces and parts. And that's what I love.
So what you're saying is it's genius.
And it is genius. And that you got it in 15 seconds, because the reality is most of my poetry is written within just a few minutes. I can't think of a single one that I sat and pored over for weeks or months. I'm like, if it doesn't work, I'm not going to try to put something into it.
Sure. Wow. Dave, thank you for that contribution. It rhymed. It was a thing.
I feel like those are the two correct compliments. It rhymed.
It was a thing. That's all you need.
You technically spoke words. Congrats.
You made it work. But, Ken, I don't know if you know this. And actually, there would be no way that you would know this unless you are diehard fans of us, which I don't believe anyone is. But you are talking with 2 full-time pastors.
I saw something about that. And I thought, well, let's see what happens.
And we love it. We love it because your first bad poem is A Party in the Manger.
So good.
And I have to say, like, I've only been writing since maybe 2017, and I got accepted into a magazine that I didn't realize was attached to a religious college.
Really?
And after I got accepted and looked at it, I was like, oh man, if they only knew what the rest of my stuff was like.
Yeah. Well, we don't mind. So,
I hope not.
yeah, no. So, how about you read for us and for our dear listeners, A Party in the Manger, and then we'll dive in.
See if I can do it with a straight face. It's real short. There were three wise men, the abominable snowman, and a camel. Hermie was swinging from a disco ball, sparkling purple against the evening sky, as a brownish cow lying on a baled hay rested its legs. It was a shindig for baby Jesus, and it lasted 30 nights.
Beautiful.
Okay.
That's testament to the fact that I pretty much could write about anything. Or I feel like it's worth, like, since this is all bad poetry, there are reasons why I feel like this poem is bad. But I typically include the bad stuff in my collections in books or chapbooks because I want the readers to know we're not God, we're not infallible, we're not perfect. We write poetry once in a while.
Right. It's a process to learn to get through stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am very curious if you can remember any of the context behind.
I can.
Oh, good.
My girlfriend at the time had a manger that she pulled out for Christmas.
Okay.
Baby Jesus and all his gang. But her smart little son used to put little things in this manger to see if anybody would notice. So there'd be a cow or a gorilla. She had a little statue of Hermie. And I don't know if you guys are pretty young, probably. I don't know if you remember the Christmas specials from the 70s, like the claymation Christmas specials.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was the one, I don't remember the name of it, but basically it was Rudolph. Hermie was an elf, and he didn't want to be an elf. He wanted to be a dentist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. His name was Hermie?
Hermie.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't remember that at all. Okay.
So she had this little doll, and I found a Christmas ornament that looked like a disco ball. So I stuck him on the disco ball and hung it right from the front of the manger.
Nice.
That's incredible.
That's just kind of where that came from.
I did not make that connection. I thought it was Hermes, like the Greek god. That's where my mind went.
So, see, and that's like for this one, that's why I feel like this is bad poetry, because if I have to explain that situation, and yes, there's a generation of people that do not remember those Christmas specials. My poetry, for the most part, I feel like it's pretty straightforward, easy to read. There's no deep hidden meanings, and that I would have to explain this for a 10-line poem just kind of takes away from it being a good poem.
Yeah, I could see that. I think anytime you evoke the word or the name Jesus in a poem, people are gonna look for that second layer, that allegory, or that theological grand statement that you're picking at. And here you're just playing out a scene of a kid playing with a manger.
That's how I am. I am like, we grew up in a Catholic family, but when I turned 18, I was, no offense, that, and left the house. And I am not religious by any means. I have all kinds of poetry that kind of pokes fun at the whole idea of religion. So,
yeah, no, I noticed that in Potholes and Pierogies, you have a lot of those conversations with just like a sense of God, but it's mainly like arguments with like you're not getting off your couch to do anything type of God.
A good way of putting it. Yeah.
So, Dave, do you wanna hit our friend Ken with some fun facts about three wise men?
Oh, that it's nowhere mention that there's three, that we don't know if they're men. We don't know anything about that. I was
Yeah.
more so focused on the fact that I don't think I've ever seen the word shindig written down, and it hurt my brain for a second. I was like, "Is that shiding? Like a
Shindig,
horse
like a party.
shiding
Yeah.
up?" Yeah, no, I gotcha. I just felt real dumb as I read that word, and I'm like,
Well,
"Nope."
like I said, generational kind of
Uh,
things, and being as old as I am, that there may be some references. And I don't generally do a lot of pop culture references.
no.
I don't, for whatever reason, like my writing is, it's a lot of memories and stuff from the past. So I don't make reference to like cell phones and computers and what's going on. And I don't know why that is. I just, in my mind, I prefer the 70s.
Sure, sure. Now that you pointed out, Dave, I don't think I've ever seen shindig spelled out either. It's
It,
it's a term
it's
for its time.
well,
I
and I've
assume it's
used
spelled
it.
correctly. It didn't give me the
Yeah,
red squiggly line
Not
in
seeing the red
Word. So,
squiggles.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've said it plenty of times, but I feel a little silly that I don't know.
I just felt like it played well with that whole
It does.
kind
Yeah,
of picture. I
Yeah.
don't know where the "it lasted 30 nights" came from, because doesn't December
Hmm.
have 31 days in it?
Yeah.
There are some
Hmm.
times I look back at a poem and I'm just like, I don't know what the heck was going for on there.
Well, maybe your girlfriend took the manger down before New Year's Eve, so that New Year's had its own thing going.
Possible? I don't know.
I usually just forget to take it down or to put it up. Either way.
Yeah. Well, I do love that you decided maybe the reason why Shindig came to mind was because you didn't want to repeat your title, which was Party.
True. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, when you title things, do you typically title it first and then run with it, or does it come after
Uh,
you've worked it?
I hate titles. Right now, I have probably 12 unpublished chapbooks, which are obviously shorter than full length, and none of them have titles.
Hmm.
I go back after the fact, and sometimes I rename them 2 or 3 times before I stick with it. It's just like I feel like I did all this work to come up with the poem, and now I got to come up with this one stupid little sentence that's
Right?
supposed to drag people in, and I just don't, it sucks. So sometimes I'll just use the first line of the poem as the title. Sometimes I don't know where I come up with them. I have to go back and spend weeks coming up with titles now for all the stuff I don't have.
Oh, that does seem really exhausting to have to pour yourself into something and then you get yourself out and then you have to dive back in.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's hard because it's this one little sentence, and it's like the same as trying to come up with a bio, trying to come up with 4 sentences that people are gonna just absolutely go, okay, I want to read that guy's stuff. I'm like, what do I have to offer? I'm just a guy who spits out weird words.
Now that's a bio.
Just a guy. Spits out weird words.
That might work. Hey, all
Yeah.
right, I'll have to write that down.
I don't know if there's anything else we could pull from this one. I really want to get to the second one because of kind of an inside joke that Dave and I have. But before that, in Potholes and Pierogies, I didn't grab the book off my shelf. I was going to quote it line for line, but you put bad poetry is hell. That was a line from your book.
Okay, I'll trust your words on that.
And
I don't remember, but it's true.
so I want to just check in, see how you're feeling right now. Are we putting you through hell at this moment?
No,
Okay,
I'm
good.
actually more comfortable than I have been in a long time.
Well, then we're not doing our job.
We're not doing our jobs. We need worse
Yeah.
poems.
I just feel like there is so much bad poetry out there. I feel like a lot of times people are trying to either be too wordy or artsy just for artsy sake, or I feel like some of these people that are going through the MFA program are trying to justify whatever money they spent for the
Yeah.
program to come up
Sure.
with. I have my opinions why I don't think people like poetry, and one of those is just it makes no sense. People don't get it. And you don't sit down to read anything because you want to be annoyed or confused. You want to get
Right.
lost in a story. And too many it took me until I found the Thursday night poetry group. It took me a long time. I was like reading poetry on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm like, oh my god, if this is the best of it, why am I like, even when I started writing poetry, I still hated it because I couldn't find any good stuff. And then I
No.
found this group, so I was happy about that.
Now, I've heard it's a group of 8. Are they all poets, or is it is a writing group? Or
It's a poetry group. It's kind of fluctuates, 6 to 8 people.
okay,
Robert, who founded the group, he does mostly poetry, but he does like flash, and I think he's some other kind of writing. But yeah, mostly poetry. Once in a while, somebody will throw out just like a quick flash piece or something just to get some feedback on it. But
so what you're saying is we need at least 2 or 4 more of you all to.
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And like I said, it fluctuates, and some people have come and gone. The majority have stuck around. I've been in it for, I think it's just a little over 2 years now.
Wow, that's
Nice.
really cool.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like I said, I was so happy to find it. And these people, and you know this by interviewing them, are all really good poets. And one of the things I'm doing is that YouTube channel. And one of the episodes, I want to just kind of give a shout out to all of these people as to why I like them, because I think a lot of times people are stuck on the old poets, the dead poets, and they think that's what it's supposed to be and that's what
Sure.
you're supposed to read. And I want people to understand that there are poets today in 2023 that are still alive that are really good.
Yeah, you mentioned your YouTube show. Do you want to plug that right now before we forget?
We can. It's really, it's like I have like 7 subscribers right now, 3 episodes.
Yeah.
It's just called Screaming Down the Poetic Highway. It started out me kind of ranting about like editors and just general people's feedback on my poetry, and me and like feeling like they didn't get what I was going for. So I had a couple episodes of that, but I want to get, well, one of the things is I want to get, plug the group. I also want to talk to some just random people who don't like poetry just to see why they don't like poetry. I'm curious, like I said, I have my reasons why I think that. Um, and then there was I have probably 6 ideas lined up, written down somewhere. So
You should interview Dave. He hates poetry.
I do. Yeah. I don't blame you. Like I said, my hatred for it was until I started writing it. All I knew was the stuff that we learned in school, and it was
Yeah.
that rhyming, which to me doesn't do anything. That's more like nursery rhymes, and my
Yeah.
poetry isn't for kids. Somewhere down the line, somebody said, "This is what poetry is. It's what it should be. So you'll follow this, and that's the end of it." And friend of mine, long time ago, I had written a book of short stories, and a friend of mine said that uh, my style reminded him of Bukowski, and I'd
Okay.
never even heard of Bukowski. So I picked up some of his books, and I love his style. It's very simple, very straightforward. He doesn't have to go into great detail, and I feel like he captures the awfulness of life without being really wordy. So when I started reading his stuff, I didn't at the time either like or dislike it, but I took away that obviously there's now not a specific format. You can
Right.
just kind of write what's in your head and see what happens. So that's how I started it.
And I can really appreciate that because, like you were saying, I, for a very long time, when I thought of poetry, I thought of Shakespeare, Edgar Allan Poe. And then Aaron and I started recording this podcast, and we were only reading Aaron's poetry from high school. So there's these like meticulous works from
Yeah.
long ago, and there's Aaron complaining about how he's in the friend zone. And oof.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many formats. And if you talk to Alex
Mm-hmm.
Kerrigan, he does all kinds of, and I can't get my head into those. They're very specific. You have to have so many lines. This one has to match this one. And I'm like, freestyle for me, you can just do whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's what I've grown to love is that even freestyle is a choice. Like there are so many genres
Yeah.
and approaches to poetry that if you don't like one, there's probably one out there that you do. You just don't
That's
know it.
That's the thing. So
Yeah.
for people who aren't poets or readers of poetry, you have to sift through a lot of bullshit to get to some
Mm-hmm.
things that you like. And that's
Yeah.
another, poetry itself is a very specific genre. And if you mentioned it to people, I'm sure they'll roll their eyes. And then you have to sit and try to explain why they should read poetry or why they should read yours. And like, I don't have a good, valid reason to explain why you should read it. Just pick it up, read a couple, and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's read this second one and see what happens.
This one, ugh, all right, this one sucks. I straight up admit. The Beard Balm Conundrum. Strictly my opinion, of course. I've done both. They work about the same for me, but I have the gray, bristly beard. The oil tends to hang around a while before it soaks in, and if you're not paying attention, the beard scrapes against the shirt collar, oil gets on the shirt collar, now you have a mess. It's easy to make, though. Essential oil mixed with grapeseed, liquid coconut, or even olive oil. The balm is fine, too. It keeps the beard together a little better without the straggly hairs. Price wise, about the same, 10 to 12 bucks for either. Oil usually comes in a 1 or 2 ounce bottle, and the balm in a small tin, which in my opinion lasts longer. But then I'm heavy handed. Be sure to use liquid coconut, not the solid. Otherwise, the next time you walk outside on a 10-degree winter day, your beard will have a strange crunch to it. That's the best way I can explain it. There's so many reasons I hate this balm.
I love like the stream of consciousness, but also that it is like just the facts of it. Like there's not a message, there's not an idea. It's just like, yeah, beard balm, beard wax. They both kind of
Yeah.
suck, but you kind of need to do it. Otherwise, it gets annoying, but then they're both annoying anyway. So,
Yeah, I have a lot of stream of consciousness poetry because the reality is, again, when I started writing, I didn't call myself a poet. I just had these weird thoughts in my head, and they were just that internal voice was going on and on. I thought, that seems to work if I write it down.
Okay. I've never done beard balm.
it's because you're a bad person, Aaron.
So I hear what Dave's saying, in which this does really it almost feels like not a grocery list, but like that kind of just like you're just listing the facts here. It's like, and these are the ingredients you could use, and you could buy this or you could buy this. If you go to the store, please pick this up for me. Kind of feel to
Yeah. It was a total test. Like at one point I had a much bigger beard than this, but my beard is so up when it grows like straight down and then it gets these weird waves to it. It doesn't curl up nice and tight, and I looked like a freak, and I walked around for months like this and just trying to test out which, oil work better, does the balm work better? And then I was like, screw it, I'm just going to cut this thing off and not worry about it. But yeah, that was the thing. At that point, I had, it wasn't liquid coconut oil, it was the solid. So I just put some in there. I walked 3 blocks to the train station on a cold winter day. And when I got to the train station, I'm like, why is my beard crunchy? That's really,
Right?
but the biggest reason as to why I think this poem sucks is it seems to me, again, I write a lot of different subjects, no matter how weird or mundane. But after reading this a few times, I'm like, who's gonna give a about my beard? There's so many weird things that I've written about that I think, who's gonna care about this? But somewhere out there, somebody does. But yeah, this just didn't. And part of it, I think, I don't know. When I'm formulating poetry in my head, you have that internal voice that's kind of reading it, and there's a flow to it. And I think maybe at the time this had a flow, but when I go back and reread it, it just didn't have the flow I was looking for. So
Well, kind of lost that voice.
Yeah, a little crunchy.
Yeah.
A little crunchy.
So, of all the podcasts in all the world, you have
You had to walk into
ours because just our last mid-season blooper break, I kept in this whole section of Dave describing to me his beard balm recipe. And I have to say, if I remember it correctly, it varies from yours. So, Dave, do you want to compare recipes at this point?
None of this coconut crap. None of this grapeseed oil.
But that was only because it was easy. If I wanted to, I could just dip my beard in olive oil and call it a day. I wasn't that invested into trying to find these recipes that worked.
No, mine is weirder because you
use it for everything.
It's literally my beard balm. I also use it on my hands as a lotion. I also do some woodworking, and I use it as a wood finish.
Hey, if it works.
It kind of works. I'll give it that.
It's a multitasker. So there you go.
Right? So there you go. You had the wrong recipe. That's the only problem. Otherwise, it would have been perfectly fine. No problems whatsoever.
Wrong recipe and just the wrong beard in general. I can't. When I go back and look at these pictures, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with my genetic makeup? That I'm the only person on the planet that has this weird ass looking beard.
I will say, when because I got a hold of one of your other books.
Home is Where the Headstones Are.
Oh, maybe that's it.
An Angry Year or Paralysis.
No, nice. I think it is Home is Where the Headstones Are. That one has a picture above your wonderfully written bio, might I say. Your hair is like up to here, and you have like a halo.
That was a Halloween party many years ago when I actually had hair, but that was a wig. I went. I'd love it if my hair was like that. Yeah. I went as the dead Jerry Garcia.
I saw that picture and I told my wife, I was like, we might be in for a weird one.
You know what?
I love it. Wow. Okay, so the poem, it doesn't flow, wrong ingredients. Yeah. And it might be for just you and perhaps Dave.
Yeah.
And I guess if I looked at it that way, like, obviously I don't see myself, poetry in general, you're not going to be, real famous or well known with your poetry out there. But hey, if I reach one person, that's one more person than I reached without doing anything.
Well, there you go.
So,
beautiful.
We'll just go on the fact that I have changed Dave's life with my one poem.
You're welcome.
Wait.
My plan worked. Confusion.
Oh man. Do we have time for one more? Should we do this one?
I think we have to, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Judging the Dead.
Judging
Oh,
the Dead.
yeah. All right. Judging the Dead. An army of the dead was doing dead things, with their broken necks bobbling up and down, shuffling their feet in expensive shoes, covered in blood and earth, and they don't care. Bits of flesh dripping from the rotting corpse, and they don't care. Today's schedule: nothing except to wander, walking into walls, dragging their disfigured bodies across a grassy field, and their brothers, sisters, aunts, husbands, kids, neighbors, they don't care. And that seems to be the perfect life. When you judge them, point, scream, and turn away, they don't care. I might be happy in that world. No, I would be happy in that world, and nobody cares. So some elements that I like, but
Yeah.
again, for me, I don't know, the first two lines has got a weird flow to it that doesn't hit me right. And then when you
Hmm.
get towards the middle, I do a lot of what's called list poems where you list things.
Sure.
Uh, but this one seemed to be a bit much with the brothers, sisters, aunts. I could have just cut that down by like three things and been okay with it. It just kind of went on too long, and the last couple of lines are just sort of weirdish to me. But it was basically it's just kind of a commentary of walking to work and seeing people just walking down the street with their heads in their phones or looking like they just don't want to go to work. They want to be dead, and
Hmm.
they didn't care what was going on around them. And I guess maybe on some level, since I care about everything, I wish I was like them, not
Mm.
caring about things so much. But
Oh.
That's I actually kind of like this one.
hey, that's all right. And when I throw these out there, I also know, and if you guys have different ideas of what you thought it was going to be like, I'm always interested to hear those, because just because I read something one way doesn't mean everybody picks up exactly what I was going for. They read whatever they read into it, and
Right.
No, I love that interpretation. I love that the kind of the thing behind it of wanting to not care
yeah.
as being perfect bliss. I mean, that's yeah. I my mind went to Coco, the Pixar movie, because that's been a popular movie in our household for a while now. So the wandering of the dead, they're living happy, colorful lives, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, with their families. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the picture that you were painting for me. I do agree with that first line of the army of the dead was doing dead things.
Yeah, like that to me again, it's I like the simplicity of the sentence, doing dead things, but it just didn't feel right. And now, so when I get done with this podcast, I'm gonna go put my head in a wall because of this crappy poetry that I had forgotten about. But thanks to you guys.
Yeah.
See, I completely disagree because the whole point is that people are just doing dead things. They're just nothing. Da 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 da. Blah 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 blah. So having it be so simple of an opening kind of just sets it up for these people don't even know what they're doing. Like that
Exactly.
that
And
kind of what's it called when you're driving a car and you realize, oh, I've been driving for the past 10 minutes and I haven't been thinking about a single thing.
yeah, yeah.
Disassociation.
Well,
That's it. I do that all the time. I could literally walk across two lanes of a street and get to the other side and be like, how the just get here and
right.
not get hit by
Yeah.
a car? So yeah, I get it. Hopefully, and I think what happens with a lot of my poems is they're sort of depressive, and you go through them and you're like, oh God, what's going to happen now? And then maybe towards the end, I put something in there that just gives you this little bit of hope.
Sure.
Mm.
And that's about as positive or happy as I can be.
You're talking to two guys with depression and anxiety, so you're in the
That's
right spot.
no, that's exactly where I'm at. And I one of the things about poetry, again, I never ever in my life ever uttered the words, I want to write poetry. It just happened, but it also happens to be a good therapy.
Yeah.
You can, you know, you sit down and you lose yourself. And even if it only takes you 5 minutes to write a poem, that's 5 minutes you don't have to deal with this outside bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And the way that you've described how you write poetry, how it takes you minutes and you put it all on the page, and it's that kind of list. Your knowing at least my type of anxiety and the ways that I have grown to appreciate poetry, even within the last 2 years doing this podcast, that kind of disassociation in order to write is kind of what you seem to be asking for here, of that, like, I write without a care and I put it out there not caring,
I
and
that
that makes me
Oh
happy.
my God. I said the exact same thing when a friend of mine said that my poetry reminds him of Bukowski, his style. Yeah, I told my friend after reading one of his books, I said he writes like he doesn't give a shit, and then he doesn't give a shit about not giving a shit. So I thought maybe
Right.
that was the key, is you just, you know, put it out there and see what it looks like, see if it works. And so far, at least 80% of my work works.
And so you're in this poem, at least from how you described it, you're envying the kind of the zombies, the undead that can go through their life doing the work that they do without a care. And I think you touch on that in Potholes and Pierogies too. It's like being able to do that 9 to 5 and then just living your life
Yeah.
without a care afterwards. And so, in some ways, while you might have never striven to be a poet, it sounds like this is the work that allows you to be happy. I don't
Yeah,
want to read
so
too much in.
far.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Like I said, it is a good therapy. There are times, again, if I go back to Bukowski, he would talk about, if he hadn't written anything for a day, he would feel physically ill.
Mm.
I'm not at that point, but I do have days where I'm stressed out at work or whatever. I'm like, man, I gotta write something just to get it on paper, just to feel like I'm still a human being, still alive. And again, outside of being the poet laureate of the Cleveland Sewer System, I also refer to myself as the blue collar poet because, if you've seen the work, it's about everyday things. And
Yeah.
that's
Sure. Yeah.
my work just kind of mirrors the reality of life. I get a lot of people write stories and poetry that's kind of surreal and out there because you want to escape
Right.
reality. But the reality is, once you're done writing or reading or whatever, life is right there in front of you again, and you have to face it. You can't
Mhm.
run forever.
That's nice, having it as kind of a tool to deal with rather than just escaping. You can
Yeah.
escape for a minute and then use it in your life to
Yeah.
deal with the crap we have to deal with.
Yep. That's exactly how I feel.
That's nice.
The genre of listing, it almost feels like you're able to compartmentalize a bit.
I never thought about it like that, but yeah, I can see that. I don't know where the listing came from, and I list off these things that you probably don't ever think about on a daily basis, but they're
Like Beard
all
Balm
parts of.
ingredients.
But these are all parts of at least my daily life. When
Yeah.
that very first book of short stories, my brother had said to me at one point, he's like, who's going to read it because nobody knows you? And I was like, you know what? He's right. God damn it. But I guess I'm hoping, and if I have to explain this, maybe I'm not doing a good job, but by reading my body of work, and again, I feel like the reader needs to do some of the work. I can't spell
Yeah.
it all out for you. But by reading my body of work, you can kind of put together some sort of miserable story of what my life has been like, even if nobody knows me. People are always interested in somebody else's. life.
Mm-hmm. And it's a life of a lot of lived experiences that, from what I can gather, you've had a lot of loss, a lot of
Yep.
death in the family, and
Yes, there are some reoccurring themes in my books. And that's how they all are. And it was funny, somebody had read the book and they were like, I just love the way how each one of these poems kind of fits together. And I don't do, like, I know a lot of people when they're putting together books, they lay out all their poems on the carpet and they do, like, I just put them as I write them. I text myself and then I put it on paper and I go to the next one. And if it's similar, oh well. If it works, great. I just, put them in as life comes.
Nice.
yeah. Well, as we before today becomes tomorrow and yesterday today, tomorrow we will have to wrap this up. I wrote this like 2 weeks ago. I can't. That was awful.
That was terrible.
I I have a standing invitation that I've had since I was a teenager. If anybody can come up with one that references my name that I have not heard, I will give you $200. I'm 52 years old. It hasn't happened yet, so you're not getting my 200
No,
bucks.
that's fair.
We come to the end of this podcast, and it feels as though tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in. Macbeth, I believe?
Yeah, you're not getting my 200 bucks either.
No, I don't think so.
Well, we'll put you out of your misery. Here at My Bad Poetry, we end each week with the words of a true poet. So before we let you go, would you be willing to share for us another one of your poems?
This one's just a little bit longer. It's another really stream of consciousness, but I really like these. It's just called All Planned Out. You make it to your 20s and you're living in a house with 3 or 4 other people. You go to college and you figure it out. Graduate, you get that job, you marry that man or woman, save up a little money and you buy a house, get a dog, have some kids, and live happily ever after. Only sometimes it doesn't work out that way. You try the college thing 3 times, but it doesn't take. And while everyone else is sitting in a classroom, you find a job that wants you to come back day after day. So you keep going back. You keep earning a paycheck that gets you by. And the 3 or 4 people graduate and move out of that house, and you find a cheaper place. You continue to live your life. You continue to get by, trying to figure it out. You get married and divorced and find another job and another, and you're on an escalator slowly moving forward, and there's no way off. So you keep following it. And whether you have all those material possessions, those same friends, whether or not you hate that job, or your car breaks down, or you don't take a vacation, or you become famous or not, whether you write that novel or make a difference, make it through life without cancer, it all plays out the same. So it seems rather pointless to follow the herd and have a plan at all. It all ends the same. We all die.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the bleak but honest truth.
That's where I'm at.
Well, that's Dave's motto.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good motto to live by.
Memento mori. Remember, you will die.
I'm looking forward to it.
I was going to say, I'm really excited because I was looking for a new YouTube channel to dive down a rabbit hole on, and I recently found one called Screaming Down the Poetic Highway.
I hear that guy's a hack.
I mean, a huge hack, real pain in the butt, but, seems decent.
This has been My Bad Poetry.
Now go write some of your own bad poetry.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Oh my
Well,
gosh, I
thank you,
gotta
Ken.
watch my mouth. There's a kid in the room.
My time here is up. But okay.
I want you to
she's
keep
adorable.
that in there.
Right?
Rhyme or free, doesn't matter to me. It's my bad poetry.